Morning everyone. I am thinking about needs. It arose out of a supervision session with my supervisor this morning. Or rather it was triggered by this because it's something that I've been thinking about for quite a while. And it's this idea that there's a number of people in my life, both professional, personal, whose relationships are struggling. And for some of them that they're thinking of ending the relationships. And, in a lot of these cases, or most of these cases, it's not that they don't love the person anymore, it's that their needs aren't being met. And I realised through talking about it over the last few days with a number of people that I probably have a slightly different view to most people on how you get your needs met in a relationship. And what we're taught is that we need to state our needs clearly in order to get them met. And I would add also that this is with a backdrop of kind of Hollywood films that basically promote the idea that a single person is capable of fulfilling all of your needs and that is what you should be striving for and that it's attainable. And I actually don't believe that at all. And it's this idea that if you can't fulfill someone's every need, that there's something wrong with you, that you're not good enough. And I would remove the word good. You're not enough, and there's nothing wrong with that, because it's not possible to be someone's everything. The level of demand and pressure that puts upon you as an individual to be someone's everything is not realistic and it's not sustainable. So I think it is helpful to state clearly what your needs are, but this is twofold. So at the moment, culturally, we're taught to state our needs with the expectation that our significant other will then meet those needs. And that's where I think it falls apart. It's that second step, because I think it is extremely important to be able to state your needs. And firstly, it's to clarify to yourself what your needs are, what really matters to you. It's not just a want or a wish or something that would be an extra bonus. It's what are your actual needs? And it brings me back, which some of you may have heard of, is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this is a little triangle used in many psychological areas. And it looks at the level of needs we have. So at the very bottom, it's the basic needs. So things to do with food, water, warmth, shelter. And then a bit higher up, it's belonging and love and acceptance. And a bit higher up, so there's 5 different stages, and I can't remember what they all are off the top of my head. But at the very top, it's self-actualization. And I suppose this is very similar to the Buddhist idea of enlightenment. It's the best that you can be, where you feel fully satisfied with your life, like you are achieving your absolute potential and you're your best person, the best person you can be. So if we think about those things as needs, what's going to get us to that point? But once we have expressed our needs, and they shouldn't be expressed with the idea of, and you sitting in front of me, you're going to meet all these needs. It's how many of these needs can I get met in this relationship? So what does this person feel that they can feasibly and sustainably do to meet my needs? And it may be that the person in your life is a real practical supporter and they can do all the practical stuff, but maybe they can't do the emotional stuff. Or it may be that they're fantastic with the emotional support, but they're useless when it comes to DIY. And so, it's like you wouldn't expect your partner to be able to fix your roof and do all the electrics, and maybe you would, I don't know, but not everyone is good at everything. And if we truly love someone, this is a question as well. If you truly love someone, surely you should be accepting them exactly for who they are. And if they can't do stuff, to find someone else to do that stuff, to find someone else to fix your washing machine or put shelves up. But equally, if someone's not good at the emotional stuff, to find someone else to meet your emotional needs. And it's about if your partner can't meet a block of needs, and let's for the sake of simplicity call it the emotional needs. If your partner can't meet your emotional needs, where are you going to get them met? How are you going to get them met in a way that doesn't damage what you have with this partner that you've decided for now is your person, the person that you want to spend the significant amount of your life with? And you may go even further and say that you want to spend your life with this person. You expect to be able to still have them in your life at the point at which you die. So how can you get those other needs met in a way that doesn't damage that core relationship that you've got? Now, obviously, when it comes to things like emotional needs, often, particularly for women, they will have like other really close female friends. Some of us manage to, not everyone does. And that's seen as, totally acceptable, totally okay. If neither of you are good at DIY, it's seen as totally acceptable to bring someone in to do all the practical stuff, like a cleaner or a housekeeper for those that have enough money. And this is where I think my thoughts are a bit different to perhaps the norm. So I've been reading up a lot recently on polyamory, and a recent training course I did had a slightly different perspective from what I've read otherwise. And to people who are poly, this may come as no surprise, but to me, I think it's stuff that I was aware of as a concept and practicing in my life, but it wasn't something that I would ever put under the umbrella of polyamory. So they were talking about how obviously there are some people that do not feel sexually attracted to other people, and so their significant relationship may be an emotional one. There was a phrase I read a while ago, which I wasn't aware of, called sapiosexual, which is someone who is turned on by intellectual stimulation. And so if you imagine that you may also have a significant other with whom you have intellectual debate, but if you're also not sexually attracted to that person, that's where it ends. And, it got me thinking about all the different kinds of relationships. So technically, under some definitions of polyamory, if you have a really close friend who is your emotional sustenance in your life, who's not your main partner, that could be counted as a form of polyamory. If you have someone with whom you engage in intellectual debate, and that is absolutely essential to you, and it's someone you go back to time and time again for this kind of support in your life, for this kind of connection, this kind of relationship, in some definitions of polyamory, that could come under that as a form of polyamory. And I find this really, really interesting, because when we go back to, I suppose, in Western society, it'd be more old-fashioned forms of relationships and ways of community support and living. If we take the kind of traditional male-female relationship, because the others weren't so openly spoken about back in the day, I'm talking about hundreds of years ago here, the men would go off and work, and the women would be at home doing all the home chores. Now, obviously, if you're at home, if you go out to work, you're with other people. If you're at home, you're stuck on your own. Except, back in the day, there were extended families living in the same home, and the women would work together. They'd get their emotional sustenance and support with each other all day long on a day-to-day basis, whilst carrying out the hard household tasks and the childcare tasks. And they would have conversations with the other women that they would never have with their partner, never dream of having with their partner, that their partner probably wouldn't really be interested in. Some of the men who weren't interested in the kind of details of relationships and lives and emotional back and forth and the dynamics that go on in a social way. I suppose in my head I'm thinking kind of in a Jane Austen-y type way, the sorts of dynamics that she observed and wrote about in her books. And these weren't of significance or of value to the men of the time. Yet it wasn't considered odd to have such close female friends. And under the definition of polyamory I was talking about, if you had a best female friend that you hung out with all day, every day, for 8 hours a day or more, and shared all of your emotional life with, and not with your partner, that wasn't seen as odd. It wasn't seen as cheating on your husband. And it also made me think about how, with the breakdown of these kind of much tighter-knit communities where people move away, move to different countries, where people no longer live with close family members, they no longer have friends necessarily that they've grown up with from a very young age, they no longer have I call it a luxury. Is it a luxury? They no longer have the luxury of spending all day, every day with their best friends, or even any significant part of each day with their best friends. But historically, we have operated more like that, we as a human race, where our needs, our human needs for human contact and human sustenance and human growth and development, were met by a very wide range of people, many of whom would be permanent fixtures in our lives. And the departure of one of these people would be akin to losing a partner in terms of the impact on your life. So it made me think about this whole idea of polyamory, now that we have these formal labels for things that are actually very important and very normal in our lives and have been going on for a very long time, but have been viewed in a completely different context. And I don't have an answer to this. That's kind of where my thinking ends. But it has made me think a lot, how many divorces could be avoided if we focus more on the fact that our partners are not there to fill all our needs, and there may be quite significant ways in which they're not able to cope. So, for example, if you have a partner who is fantastic in a practical sense, but really gives you zero emotional support, can't understand the dynamics and relationships and needs between small children, between their children and their partner, how to support kids when they're anxious, as one half of a couple in today's society, it's like, well, you need to find a partner who can give you all that, whether they're male or female. You're with the wrong person. They should be able to meet all your needs. And so I'm here to say, no, maybe they're not. Maybe they're not here to meet all your needs. And yes, you deserve to have your needs met, but it's your responsibility to go away and find out how to get them met. And going back to what I started with, in a way that doesn't damage that core relationship that you have chosen to have. So I suppose, in terms of putting it in a nutshell, it's about, 1, identifying what your needs are. 2, having an open and honest discussion with your main partner about what needs are not being met, and coming up with ideas about how they could be met in a way that doesn't damage the relationship you have with your, let's call them your favourite person, for want of a better word. And for some people, those might be sexual needs. Say, for example, if you have a couple who wish to experiment more in that way, or if they're bisexual and they want to experiment with the gender that they're not married to. And I know that this is controversial and it won't work for everyone. But it may not be anything to do with sex or sexuality. It may just be to do with, childcare or exercising together, or religious needs, spiritual needs for some people. They may need to find a different community. And yes, it might make you sad that you can't share some of those things with your partner, but it is not your partner's responsibility to fulfill all your needs. While it is their responsibility to be able to figure out what needs they can fulfill in a sustainable fashion, and your responsibility to figure out what needs are left over. So I hope that hasn't been too rambly, or I hope it's clear, because I'm very aware that my thoughts are still kind of in process around all of this. But I've been thinking a lot about it, and I wanted to share it with you, see what resonates for some of you. Just let me know your thoughts, let me know your reactions. I'll be very interested to hear about this and maybe have some debate on this. I hope you all have a good week and get as many of your needs met as possible. Take care, everyone.